Welcome to Mentoring Moments. Mentoring Moments is a sub-series of the E-commerce Edge podcast. It is composed of clips taken from Jason's one-to-one and group mentorship sessions. Mr. John RAVARIS from not only UVP Solutions, but also Chief Growth Officer at Flow Control Management. Welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Hey, great to be here with you, Jason. Look forward to our discussion.
Me too. Great to have you along for the ride today. Now, tell me a little bit about UVP Solutions. UVP is something we use in the digital world. Well, we use in many different worlds, usually to refer to unique value proposition. I'm assuming I'm jumping to some conclusions here that UVP Solutions refers to that. But where did UVP Solutions come from? How did you get into this world?
Yeah, thanks. You're exactly right. UVP Solutions is short for unique value propositions. One piece of added knowledge around the intro is I just finished a book called Define Value, Drive Growth. And the reason why I bring that up, not for a shameless plug, but its essence is around articulation and telling the story of how companies build unique value propositions kind of from beginning to middle to end. And we'll talk about that. But literally, my career, marketing by education, sales by having to put food on the table. And I was blessed early in my career, literally out of university, to work for an organization that had very well defined unique value propositions, knew the products and services and the value of those, knew their strengths as an organization, knew pain points of their clients and how to connect their unique value to eliminate pain and help success, and got sales training around that, and then was told where to take it and went out and was super successful, right? Because when you know exactly what your clients are looking for and you bring it to them, some magical things happen. And then for the next 30 years, I didn't have that. So I had to build it myself. And over that time, learned the process around doing that and started UVP Solutions to help other small, medium-sized businesses do that. And then wrote the book around the support. So really a history and a passion for uniqueness and helping companies be unique and then putting it all together. In your world, in my world, it means the same thing.
And it's so interesting because I think that in many cases, almost all the clients I've dealt with in my career, and I've been doing this for 26 years working in the e-commerce space, I don't think I have a single one that I've ever met that didn't think that they were totally unique, that they were a perfect snowflake, that they were incredibly special and doing things really uniquely. But oftentimes it's a case of, especially laterally as a consultant, sometimes telling somebody where their baby is ugly. And sometimes that's your job as a consultant, is to be pretty honest and to help them disrupt themselves so that they don't get disrupted by somebody else out in the market. And oftentimes they have a really difficult time telling me, and part of my discovery is asking them questions around what makes them special as a business. What do customers tell them makes them special? What in their foundation and how they came to be as a business makes them special? Like their reason for existing. And sometimes they have such a hard time, or they'll copy and paste the About Us from their About Us page on their website, and they'll literally copy and paste that into the field on the form, the initial form for discovery around this. And I'm like, that's not really what I'm looking for here. And why is it, you think, that so many businesses have a hard time articulating what makes them special?
Yeah, so well articulated, Jason. My favorite question is along your same lines of your favorite question is, can you just tell me why a client should choose your business over a competition? It sounds almost so easy that it's a layup, but you're right. So many people struggle with it. It's interesting. I believe there's a couple of reasons. My primary thesis is most value propositions are built more holistically inside out. And what I mean by that is owners, leaders, leadership team, maybe some senior salespeople that know the market, right? How many times have you heard that? I've been doing this 25 years. You don't have to tell me whether clients want. I know what clients want. And great value propositions, that uniqueness that you work with your clients to articulate. There is an inside component. I'll talk about that in a minute. But where most fail is on the outside component, right? It's talking to those clients about, what are you struggling with? Where is your pain? What are you looking for a supplier, either of services or products like me, to provide? what are your expectations around the service or product we provide? And then holistically, how do we help you be successful? And I would venture to guess that if you asked a number of your clients, when is the last time you went out and really asked clients by vertical market, right? Because they're not all the same. Healthcare is different than industrial and yada the whole bit. And then also by persona, an operations person versus a purchasing person is different. And how do you really know that client? So I think the best unique value propositions are built inside what are our strengths, what are our weaknesses, found not by a small group of leaders, but by asking employees of the organization a deeper dive, mixing that with really in depth client interviews around information that you want. And then also, I like doing vendor interviews, supplier interviews. These are folks that do business not only with your company, but likely with your competitors. And you can ask some kind of open ended questions. And you don't even have to ask about your competitors, but the fact that you ask them, they'll start telling you what Jimmy's doing and what Billy's doing and what Susie's doing. And you get some really good insight. So I think the real answer is great value propositions are built inside and outside and put together holistically in a 360. And most people miss that outside perspective because they know.
And like I run into this in my work constantly because another question I typically ask my clients, it's just part of my process, is when was the last time you canvassed your clients or had a third party canvass your clients and actually talk to them about the services you provide, get their feedback, whether have you asked them about, in my case, a digital or e-commerce solution that maybe is looking at being implemented. What are the, and I help them ask these questions with more nuance than what they're even able to ask themselves. And I usually ask specifically my clients to not be in the room. So I choose to run these sessions independent of the supplier that I'm working with, specifically because oftentimes what I find is their customers are not as brutally honest with them as they will be with me, because they got to turn around and work with that supplier the next day. So and my clients will oftentimes tell me they've got an account manager. If they have any issues, they just take it to their account manager and we fix it. No, they've had Bob or Jane, their account manager, for the last 20 years. They grew up together. They go to each other's kids' ball games. They go to drinks on a Friday together. What are the chances that even if they're not happy, they're actually going to say that to their account manager, and with the level of honesty and candor that you're looking for? But they'll certainly tell me, especially if Bob or Jane's not sitting at the same table. And so I contextualize that by saying, hey, look, what are one or two or three things that you love about doing business with the supplier? But then conversely, what are one or two or three things that either you hate about doing business with the supplier or that are really challenging, really difficult? Make it difficult to do business with the supplier. And I tell you, when you give them an environment where they feel safe and comfortable to tell you that, they certainly will, won't they?
Absolutely. You know what I love about your approach as much is when you have your client in the room, they discount a lot of what the feedback is saying because they'll get out of the room and they'll say, "Hey, Jason, let me tell you what they really meant."
Yeah.
And you're like, no, I don't want you to tell me what they really meant because I want to digest what I actually heard. I love the analogy of the old Police song, 100 billion bottles washed up on the shore. No client actually gives you a full value proposition or tells you their core value word. They'll give you every little snippet. They'll give you every little message in that bottle. You got to open those bottles and put it together. And that's where the uniqueness comes in your value proposition. But you're exactly right. When you get somebody who's so preconceived or has a preconceived notion of what they want to hear, it's really hard to pick out those two or three messages in those bottles that are unique and different. And quite frankly, that's where the magic lies.
It is. And I think oftentimes it's hard. I go back to that comment where I said, oftentimes my job is to tell a business where their baby's ugly. Owners, founders, leaders of businesses, sales leaders in businesses, people that have been in their industry for 30 years and they're experts. It's so hard for them to be objective about their business, because, and it's like having your kid. Your kid might be super unappealing or unattractive, but they're the most beautiful kid in the world to you. And so that it's the same with our businesses. Like we have rose-colored glasses on when it comes to our businesses, and sometimes those rose-colored glasses are well justified, and then we are justified in being super proud of the businesses that we've built. And in other ways, it creates blind spots, I think, that are really difficult to identify on our own without the benefit of an impartial, unemotional third party who has no Sure, I want to see the businesses that I work with succeed for sure, but I'm not directly tied. Like my future, my entire future is not directly tied to their success or failure. And there is an emotional connection, especially within leadership and business owners, that I think it's just there are biases in those communications with customers that sometimes we don't even know we have. And so I feel like working with a third party is almost essential to get to the truth.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting? You'll appreciate this from the work you've done, but the fear that owners, leaders have is always on the negative side. I've sat in rooms with debriefing employee interviews with owners, and they're brought to tears by the immense love and respect and value that their employees have and see in the business and the opportunities they're given. So many times it works on the flip side as well, that you don't ask because you don't feel like you want to know the answer. But at the end of the day, the answer, and to your point, the unbiased information sometimes is actually significantly better than you think it was. And again, that's where the magic lies. As your work, unique value propositions, I talk about really they come in two forms. There's like competencies, things that you do like your competitors do, and a lot of people throw those away, say, we all do it the same. Even if you have a like competency, it's upon you as creating value to articulate those different. And then obviously every business has one or two unique things that are uniquely yours, but that like competency and that unique competency have to come together to be those 4 or 5 tidbits that actually add up to something meaningful. And you get both of them in, to your exact point, in those honest conversations of that one message in the bottle that you don't think is important that actually is the corner pin to one or two of what turns out to be your either unique competency.
And do you ever run into situations where after you do maybe an audit or you do a discovery, you talk to maybe some of your clients, when you start to get some feedback and you start to get a sense of the lay of the land, do you ever have a situation where you have to go back to your client and say, look, you are just not that differentiated, right, in the market, meaning that the kind of the message is generic, the kind of every way that you're positioning yourself in the market today is so same that it's very difficult for say a new potential customer in the market to come and say that's what makes you special. Maybe you're not the cheapest, maybe you're not the fastest, maybe whatever, but if people can't pretty quickly identify what makes you special, I think it makes it super hard to then create any kind of a message that resonates with, because almost every business, if they communicate properly, I like to say your vibe attracts your tribe, right? So there's something for everybody. It's almost everybody out there, even in personal relationships. I tell my wife, there's somebody for everybody. It's so amazing. You meet people that you think, oh my God, they're a challenging person to be around or whatever. And then you find that they're married and then you meet their partner and you go, you guys are just perfect for each other. Like maybe the most two perfect people that could have ever met on the planet. You are perfect for each other. And almost nobody else could be the puzzle piece that fits together like you guys do. And I feel like businesses are a little bit like that. And the second thing I'll say is I think niching down is a superpower. And I think that most businesses struggle mainly because they're trying to be all things to all people. And that is simply an impossibility. So why even try? So I'd love your take on that.
Man, there's another hour in just both of those two. But let me break it down real quick for you. The first piece is you're absolutely right. Core values, what you care about as a business, purpose, why you do what you do is important. And some people will tell you those are the things that are most uniquely special about you and why people want to do business with you. I think that's exactly right. The other piece is we do at the end of our kind of discovery phase, we do a deep competitive analysis. And you can't, it's hard to make that you're all vanilla to an owner when they think they're differentiated until you show them that their competitors say the exact same thing, because quite frankly they've never looked at what they're saying in the instance. So you're right, it's a hard thing to differentiate, so to speak. But when you show an owner, a leader, that say, hey, this is why we have to say these things different. I had a great example of this. I work for family businesses and in the industrial cleaning space, and there's a lot of pride in being a family business. And everyone I work for, their about us was a family business. In the last one I worked for, we put all of our competitive sets together about their about us, And all four of them said we're a family business, right? So by definition, you're not differentiated. It just happened this family business that I was working for was a fourth generation family business, and the others weren't. So we were able to talk about stability and consistency in an era where a lot of people are selling to private equity. We have a
Yes.
transition program and the rest. So yeah, family business, like competency, has to be articulated differently. And the last piece is everybody says we all have a unique ability, and you're exactly right. Connecting those dots is a superpower, and that's what we try and our core competency at UVP Solutions, and what we try and help others is you give us access to your organization, you take part in the discovery phase, and we will help you link. We will help you open those messages in the bottle because everybody gets them, and we'll help you connect them together in a way that's meaningful and unique for your business. And again, as we talked before, this isn't a big elephant that can't be done. Most businesses now are differentiated on two or three things that are meaningful. And what I love, actually, the market's coming back to us is from an e-commerce and e-business standpoint. You have so fewer words than you've ever had before. You don't have to make up a whole bunch of stuff. If you got 3 or 4 bullet points that are unique and different, that's all you need. You need 25, 30, 60 words. It's not like the old days when we used to fill 20 pages of a website with a bunch of garbage that didn't matter. So it actually is coming back to us that all anybody wants to hear are the 60 words that make you uniquely different.
I agree. And I also think on the flip side of that, the beauty, especially of LLMs and AI models now, and especially AI assistants now, your ChatGPTs of the world, your Groks, your Geminis, your et cetera, your Claudes, the beauty is they, unlike the traditional Google search engine, for example, where every query was 2 to 4 words long, now we're having conversations with these LLMs now. And so the LLMs are able to contextualize much, much more information. And so if you do tell a narrative, sure, maybe you've got your bullet points on your homepage, those 3 bullet points on your homepage, but on your About Us page, we now can get much more detailed about story, much more detailed about narrative, much more detailed about history. And all that rich information doesn't get distilled down to a 1 or 2 or 3 word query anymore. As with these large language models, now it's a discussion where all that information gets ingested and it gets woven into the story that gets told based on the conversation we're having with the LLM. And so I feel like there's two sides to this coin, which is, yes, traditional search, brevity matters. I think LLM search, totally different kettle of fish. And I think that many businesses have completely lost the plot and have a total inability to tell a story now, because historically for the last 15 years, for the last 20 years, they've had to optimize for Google, and Google prizes brevity, and Google prizes these 1, 2, 3 really clear bullet points that match 1, 2, 3 word queries coming in, right? And so we've optimized based on the queries across the internet, which have largely been distilled by Google down to these super short phrases. And so it feels like everybody's lost the ability to tell a good story. So both sides matter now, unlike ever before.
Yeah, super said. And I also love the human intuition with the AI help because it's actually realizing it a lot in the business where taking some of those human elements that you find, that those bottles that you cap, if you will, and then being able to enrich the story with the help of the agent with the tool is really important. I talk a lot about in the book about the partnership there. You don't want to go too much one way, you don't want to go too much the other way, but that partnership is really impressive. One thing I'd love to, interestingly enough, the space that you're in, e-commerce and tech, a lot of young tech startups seem to struggle with this a lot. I have a lot of friends that are very interested in the work we're doing and working with a few. That is because in a time the tech was the differentiator and it carried a lot of that unique value component. And now it really is about the tech improving workflows and all the other pieces. But what does your organization do and how do you do it? Utilizing the tech to be different and unique and increase speed and efficiency and all those things. And people struggle with mixing the softer, right? The right brain stuff with the left brain. Like, I got great tech. Yeah, okay, but can you explain how it helps people with their workflow be better? So it's an interesting dynamic where right brain creative unique value propositions is starting to become a little bit more vogue with our left brain tech smart folk.
I don't think you can let's put it this way. I think you do yourself a disservice if you're separating them. And I'll give you an example. So I'm working with a client now, massive manufacturer of steel products in the United States, one of the biggest in their industry. They don't just make and sell their product, but they create software internally. They build software internally that makes their custom. They build this software as a utility. They don't sell it to their customers. They let their customers use it completely for free as a utility to help with the planning approval process for engineers, architects, all the people that basically spec in their product into a project. They ease the process of that entire thing with cities, counties, states, etc. They've all got these very rigid sort of planning processes where you have to spec in, you have to submit your plans, they have to be approved, all this sort of stuff. That normally is a very human, manual, very time consuming process. And so their tooling allows that, it basically connects their catalog with the tooling that these designers and architects use so that they can pull down all the appropriate spec sheets. They can pull down all the information that is required by these localities for submission for approval, and to speed that entire process by like a factor of 10. Built other software that's a utility as well. But that's like one of their biggest benefits of doing business with them is that, oh God, you're not just supplying me product, but you're actually making my life better, faster, easier, more profitable. Like you're improving my life at no extra charge. And I think that is such a cool thing because yes, it's technology that's facilitating that. But if this company didn't have empathy for their customers and the process that they have to go through in their daily job, they would never have thought to do this thing. So I get the sense, and every great company that I work with does things like this. They add value in ways that go way beyond the products or specific services that they sell. And I get the sense that the foundation of all of this consistently over and over again for me is empathy. If you do not have empathy for your customers as a business, then you're probably never reach that breakout success point.
Yeah, two things really strong. One is I specifically use in the book and in my own vernacular the term client versus customer. And I don't do it to be a jerk because some people use them interchangeably, and a lot of big companies who sell solutions use customer. I'm not berating anybody, but I do it more for what you talk about. And it's a mental shift. It's a mental shift that we want to think about the people who we sell to not as transactional relationships, but as solution based relationships. So even if you call them customers, think about solutions and not transactions. I think is really important. The other piece is you just did one of the best jobs of describing the difference between pain points and success factors of anybody. Everybody always asks me, John, you talk about pain points and success factors, and how do you do it? And you just described it really right. Pain points, that client that you just mentioned can do a lot of things to produce their service and their product well, happy as can be for their clients and all that. What you just described is a success factor that makes their client better, more successful, and they didn't even know that they were missing it, right? Until you brought it. And to your point, that's where the real higher levels of value creation are built and stickiness with clients is created. Really important point, right? It's not just about getting rid of pain. That's the ticket to entry in today's marketplace. It's about building success in a way that really helps your client achieve their goals.
Now, what would you say to, so I'm dealing primarily for the last 6 years in the B2B world, manufacturers selling to distributors, selling to dealers, et cetera. So it's very much a B2B world where B2B selling and relationship building are part and parcel of success in that world. You can't just sell boxes of stuff, cartons, pallets, and containers, shipping that out. Anybody can do that, but it's all the services and all of the relationship building that gets wrapped around that actually matters. But in the B2C and retail world, what happens if a pure play e-commerce player or an omni-channel player that's maybe got some retail stores, they sell online, they sell through marketplaces, maybe they sell through social and TikTok shop, but they might not themselves, when they meet you, they might think to themselves, hey, well, look, I don't know, I sell t-shirts or I sell strollers or whatever it is. I think sometimes it's harder for them to identify their UVP because they go, actually, all we're doing is we're just making it convenient. like a one-stop shop for people to come and buy this thing or from this category of products. That's all we do. We're okay. Maybe we do some curation. Maybe we understand our market pretty well. But what do you say to those companies that say, look, we don't really feel like we do much that's unique. We're just a retailer.
Yeah, yeah. One of my favorite sayings is neither your industry nor your competitive set dictate the value you create. Only you can do that. So if you come at it as we are not different and we are not unique, then it's very hard to be different and unique. But there's a thousand examples of, I'm thinking of the socks, Bonbo socks. And I live in Wisconsin and we have quick trip gas stations. You would say there's nothing more of a commodity than a gas station. When you leave the gas station, you check out and you leave Quick Trip, right? They have their associate trained to say, see you next time. And you're like, well, see you next time. But it's an invitation that we're not a gas station. We're part of your community and we want you to come back because our restrooms are clean and our food is hot and the things that our donuts are great and you want to be there. So to me, that approach is a little bit of a cop out. And as I get older in my years, I have less time to convince people that they should be doing stuff that they shouldn't be doing. So you can ask a few questions, I'm sure, as you do in your business, Jason, and say, are you a good client for me or not? But the reality is, unless you have the desire to find those couple of nuggets, and it doesn't need to be many, but it's those couple of nuggets, right? Clean restrooms, good donuts, hot food, and an associate who wants to see you next time. You can build a really big business in that, and they have, just like others.
Look at Buc-ee's. Buc-ee's is a prime example of that, right? Like
Perfect.
multi-billion-dollar company built on the back of, I think it's a freaking chipmunk or whatever it is. There was an entire secondary business. They don't sell their in-store products. They don't sell them online. You can't buy them through Buc-ee's. You have to visit a Buc-ee's location to buy their plush toys, to buy anything. You got to go in. There was a
Yeah.
secondary company that was built around physically going into those stores, buying in bulk, taking them home, listing them online, and somebody else built an entire company around making their merchandise available online because Buc-ee's didn't want to do it themselves. Now, what's wild about this is, to your point, again, fast food, convenience stores, petrol stations, etc., total commodities. But Buc-ee's has managed to turn themselves in, like they have a literal cult following. There are people, like if you go to Reddit, there are thousands of Reddit threads about Buc-ee's. Now, how you go from commodity to cult following, that's pretty wild to me.
Yeah, and it's been done over, and there's so many good examples of that. That they look at it like Quick Trip. They look at a restroom differently. They don't look at a restroom as utilitarian. They look at a restroom as an experience. I want you to have a good, clean experience in our restroom, right? They want you to not think about their food as fast food. They want to think about their food as a home cooked meal, right? So what do? They have somebody out there slicing pulled pork, right? You could easily slice it in the back and put it in the sandwich, but they chose to take the person out of the back. Same person, by the way. They chose to take him out of the back and let them cut it in front of you. It's again like competency, cutting meat, done and articulated completely differently to make it unique. Love that.
Yeah, and do you think that businesses that didn't necessarily start with UVPs in mind, they fell into that industry because maybe the founder worked in the industry and they decided, hey, I want to start a business in this industry or I want to have more freedom in my life. So that's why I decided to start this company because I didn't want to be working for the man for the rest of my life or whatever it is. Do you think that companies that maybe don't start with ultra clear UVPs can develop them over time?
It's a fantastic question. I have seen in a number of instances the answer yes. I've even seen sometimes you say, do you need to have a right brain sales and marketing leader who understands the intangibles, the softer, because I can't get my finance CEO right or my IT CEO to get there. I think anytime that you have somebody that has an appreciation for the client, an appreciation for being successful, i.e., whatever metric you use. A lot of people use revenue profit, right, as your benchmark. People who want to create a better organization for their employees, right? Because unique value propositions typically do a little bit better profit wise, right? Because you're trying to differentiate businesses. So there's a couple of those ingredients that go into the soup. You do want to improve, right, the client experience. You do want to have to improve your employee experience. You do have to want to be different and unique from your competitor as some basis to do this work. If you don't care about those things, I think you're right, Jason. I think it's very tough. But if you have one, two, or three of those things that you're saying, hey, can you help me put these things together to be a little bit unique and different? I think the majority of people envision doing that. Sometimes where you get stuck is people want to say, they probably say it to you, right? They want to say, okay, if I do all this work, how much more profit am I going to get? Or
Yep.
how much faster am I going to grow? And if you can't tell me it's going to be 2x what I am now, I'm not interested. So and you get to the prudent person piece. It's, can I tell you today? No, but would you agree with me that if we did these three things, you would be in a better position than you are now? Yes. So it's a little bit of that dance you have to do of what success looks like.
I oftentimes ask the question, what happens if you don't do this? That's what is the opportunity cost of not doing this? And I don't know how you contextualize your service when you're talking to your clients, but I tell them straight out of the gate, I do not offer a done for you service. That does not exist in my world. It is a done with you service. That is the only way this works. You and me in partnership together is the only way this works. I cannot just do a discovery and then go away and beaver away for 6 weeks and then deliver you a BRD, for example, or I can't. There's not a single deliverable I give to my clients that is a completely done for you service. It doesn't work. I know because I've tried. It doesn't work. And you have to have that level of buy-in and commitment from their side to make it work, right? And so I always try to say, look, we have to get a great outcome. I need to know what that definition is for you. And only once we know what that is for you and to you, then we can go forward with total clarity of purpose. But if you don't know that, I can't help tell you what that is. I can help you with tactics. I can even help you with elements of strategy. But in terms of vision, that's all you. I can't tell you what is important about your business. I can't tell you what you want your business to look like in 5 years. I could tell you what's maybe possible or what I think is reasonable to achieve over the next 1 to 5. That vision has to. I found that when people try to outsource the future vision they have of their business, it leads to a really bad place. Do you see the
Yeah,
same?
totally. And it's interesting. We get called in a lot, not from failing businesses. Those people that last question about can people change, we typically get called in when you have a very successful business that's hit a plateau, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you've grown from 10 million to 20 million, and guess what, all of a sudden to get to 25, the clients that you're calling on are larger and bigger and more complex and different. All of a sudden you've now entered in a whole nother competitive set, right? The guy who does 50 millions, you're now nipping at his or her toes, right? And they have a whole nother level of capabilities. So what happens is it's the old what got you here won't get you there, right? The president or owner was very successful. They had the relationships. They were the top salesperson, right? And then all of a sudden that thing starts scaling. You need to do more to keep it going. And all of a sudden you hit this roadblock where things change. And that's where people say, okay, hey, why aren't I as successful as I was? And you, quite frankly, you look at where they are from a unique value proposition standpoint, a delivery of outcomes standpoint, an articulation of the value that you drive, and then really utilizing their clients as advocates to grow in their business to new places. And they don't have a lot of those fundamentals. So it comes back to, again, what got you here won't get you there. That's when we get called in a lot.
You make a really good point. I didn't really think about it in the way that you just described it, in that I know, for example, as my clients, as their ICP evolves and changes over time, so does their tech, so do their processes, so do all the things they do internally as a business. They have to change, they have to adapt, they have to scale. But I didn't really think on the flip side of that, we also potentially have a pretty radical change required to our UVP as well, meaning that we can't just do more. Our ICP changes, we can't just do more of what we were doing and find ways to just scale more of that. In some cases, maybe if that's a core value that you bring to the table, regardless of the scale or type or target market that you're going after, then great, we got to figure out a way to scale that thing. But oftentimes, it requires a totally different value proposition. Like I know that The way I deliver my services, as I have gone up the enterprise class ICP, going from businesses that are doing a minimum of 20 million bucks a year in revenue to businesses that are doing a minimum of 50 million bucks in revenue, their levels of complexity are significantly higher. Oftentimes they're working in highly regulated and high governance industries. So what they need in terms of how they deliver to their customer is wildly different to a simple business that's smaller and operating in simple verticals. And so I didn't really think of it through the lens that you just said, which is, if your ICP changes, then probably your UVP in whole or in part is going to have to change too.
100% for sure refresh of components that are meaningful to that new client segment against that new competitor. And oh, by the way, your new strengths as an organization, right? Because you didn't get to that size because you kept doing what you were doing at 10 million.
Yeah.
You've adapted, you've got new skills, you've hired some new employees, they brought new competencies. All of a sudden, things are happening. You got functional leads that aren't just tactical. You got that new strategic IT person, right? You got that new strategic finance person. So the whole thing is melding, and the organization's strengths are switching as they grow. And you got to tell that strength story, because guess what? Those larger clients and those stronger competitors, you're going to need all the powder in your barrel to go after them.
No question about it. And does this usually, your process, does it, I'm assuming it's a lot like mine, starts with a discovery, we have some follow-up workshops, maybe we have some questionnaires. I've always felt that one of my strengths as a consultant is the fact that I'd like to think that I ask better questions than maybe any of my peers, right? And I've always thought if you ask better questions, you get better answers. And I've taken that one step further over the last couple of years, which is to say, if I can ask more nuanced questions, I'm going to get significantly better answers. And with those better answers, we can create a better blueprint. We can create a better roadmap. We can create better outcomes overall if we can get into the nuance of those questions instead of just saying, for example, and I try to help my clients do the same thing when I'm talking to their customers and I'm doing customer interviews on their behalf. I don't just go, hey, if these guys built a new website, would you use it? That's not a nuanced question. Like, you need to get more nuanced than that. And so you've got to get into the subtleties of all the additional granular value that having a new website would maybe present to that customer. And you go, hey, if you could do this thing easier through this new portal that we're looking to build in this way, would that matter to you? Like, you need to be able to get more nuanced. And so I feel like the best consultants I've ever met in my life are so nuanced that it's almost painful to watch, because it's like the businesses that they serve should already be able to ask these questions of themselves, but they just can't because they're inside the fishbowl.
Yeah. Yeah. Said, I think that's a piece of it. So exactly right. The roadmap takes you through the discovery process. Not until you have all the data do we start the develop process, which is putting the notes from the bottles together. I think where we really differentiate, though, and quite frankly, when I was talking to publishers about the book, the one thing that publishers were really excited was this concept of marketing and sales being under one roof, because many businesses aren't going to buy a marketing book that knows this process and then a sales book to execute the process. So where we've been really successful is once those UVPs are built, then we transition into an enablement, and we take them and build the sales collateral, build the pieces, and then train the organization. Because once you have unique value propositions, the best part about it is it's not just people who have a sales title who are responsible for carrying it. It's anybody who has any customer facing opportunity. One of my best successes, a business I ran, I had 5 salespeople. I had 25 senior operators. And once we had a UVP that was clear, concise, and competent, we trained the 25 operators to be part of the sales process along with our sales team. And boy, our business really took off, because at the end of the day, when the sales team left, they wanted to know who was left to do the work. And the operators being able to articulate our value proposition, and they were the ones that were responsible for doing the work when we left, is when it really took off. So it's not only just having the UVPs, it's about getting them into things like the website and all the sales collateral, training the client service folks, training the operations team, training that whole group. to be able to deliver it. Then once you start delivering those outcomes, then we spend a lot of time on our fourth D of the 4D roadmap, which is delight. And a lot of times people don't take, most people will tout that they have 95, 96, 97% retention of their clients. If you got that much retention of your clients, how come we don't have, stacks of testimonials and stacks of case studies and stacks of video? We don't have them, right? We don't even get them until somebody asks us for them. So we're big on educating, enabling the organization, making sure the outcomes are being delivered, and then helping organizations amplify that message through client advocacy.
Yeah, it's interesting because going back probably 15 years ago, I think one of the first times I ever started to understand full spectrum delivery on our promises as a business was when I was working with a client and they were going through a design thinking process internally. So they had a design thinking consultant that they had brought in, and I got to sit in on some of the design thinking sessions that they were working through in terms of customer journey mapping and all the touch points and all the areas in which, okay, where have we made promises in the business where it takes everybody in the organization to deliver on that promise. It's not just delivery, it's not just packaging, it's not just ingredients, it's not just the design or the logo, or it is literally where every single function in the business has to be aligned to deliver on this promise. Otherwise, we have failed in delivering on that promise. And that was probably the first time I ever thought, wow, this is so much bigger than sales, marketing, branding, packaging, communication, messaging, channel selection. Like, it's so much more than that. It literally takes everyone in the business having such clarity of purpose mapped around these UVPs that everybody knows what they are and they know the part they play in delivering that.
And we always start before we educate outside the organization, we educate inside the organization. You're absolutely right. People have to understand their role in delivering the outcomes our clients are experiencing, because that's an important part of the UVP. How many times have you heard our products are really good, but we just lost a customer because we can't get the billing right? Can you imagine how hard it is to get a client
Yeah.
to lose them because we can't get the bills right for 4 months in a row? But it happens every day. The delivery is dropped at the wrong place 3 times in a row. It's amazing how we lose business based on the holistic total organization not knowing what's important to our clients for us to deliver on a consistent basis.
And in your experience, do you find it harder working with businesses that are larger or smaller than, say, call it 100 million bucks? Or do you find it easier or harder working with a public company versus a private family owned business? Are there certain cohorts of customers that you find are just a natural fit, not only for your consultancy, but are just a natural fit for being able to get to the heart of what makes them special, unique, and being able to articulate that easier and more clearly to their target customer cohorts? Like, what are the attributes of your prototypical perfect client?
Yeah. It's hard to put a dollar amount on them. People always twist my arm, so I've got myself to this kind of 10 to 250 million dollar range. And the only reason I say that is it's not as much the size, it's about who they have in the roles that need to do this. So you get above 250 million ish, depending on the industry, and you start having more strategic people in sales, marketing, client success type roles where um, they can create some of these tools, programs, although many of them don't. Let's just be honest, right? I got a great friend of mine who just left a $7 billion business. He's like, John, we don't have any of this stuff. In that band, what you typically have is a marketing resource, right? Either a marketing director, marketing manager. You might have a sales manager, sales director. Both of those, not negative term, are more tactical. The execution of make something pretty, maintain our website, manage the sales team, make sure they're putting their stuff in CRM. So they don't really have the strategic background to do this work. So the owner reads the book, right? Or hears about us on a podcast and says, I got the people. Now, if I provide them with the strategy, right, guys, both of you guys read this book. I read it. Come back to me on how we're going to execute this work. We get it done. So it's, to me, it's about, and again, different sizes, but where you are in your maturation process based on your business. And when you really need to start thinking about your go to market in a strategic manner versus a tactical manner of just go sell more, just create me another cut sheet. That's when we really see people really get involved and seen it up to uh, hundreds of millions of dollars.
And I guess above that size, even if they don't have that capability internally, they would assume that they do. So therefore it's hard to convince them that maybe they need some outside help because they can't do all this internally. They're inside the fishbowl. And so therefore it's just really hard to get perspective. And that's where a third party would be helpful. But I guess similar to me, I find that public companies are without a doubt the hardest clients I've ever had. And so I wouldn't say I necessarily have a hard and fast rule, but I would say that I avoid public company or tend to avoid public companies like the plague, mainly because almost every single decision is made by committee, and it's just so hard to get anything done inside these organizations. And so oftentimes I will never see my consulting acted upon. And that's depressing as a consultant. Like, you can come in and you can do your best work, but it'll never see the light of day in some of these businesses because they're so big and it gets put drawer somewhere and never thought about again. But similar to you, I think for me, $50 million to $500 million privately owned companies, most of the time for me, they're second or third generation family owned companies, almost always.
Yep.
And these businesses, they're hungry enough to adapt so that they don't let the market pass them by, and there's a sense of legacy in those businesses. So they've done things the same way for a very long period of time, and it has brought them to where they are, but it's not enough to keep them competitive, especially in the world of AI and everything else. And so they're going, maybe the grandson or granddaughter of the founder is now going, okay, I love what our family has built, but we now need to take it to the next level. We don't have the internal skills to be able to do that, so we need some help. That feels like the sweet spot for both of us in a way.
Yeah, perfectly said. I just published an article in Family Business Press, and it what I love about our practice more than anything is getting those generations together, because this is, if there's any place where you can sit generations down it and work together, is around these kind of foundational things like purpose, core values, unique value propositions, strategy around where we're going to sell, why we're going to sell it. And what I love about it is mom and dad or grandma and grandpa, they get in the process to share all the things that made them great, right? And the kids have to listen. And in the same instance, the kids can share all the reasons why the market has changed, right? And selling your buddy Billy at a loss doesn't make any sense anymore, and all those things. And we get to find some fundamentals, right? Family businesses are hard, but if you can just get some consensus around how we're going to treat our employees, what's our purpose as a business, why are we unique and different, what are our strengths as an organization, then you have something to work with. And I love doing that more than anything, to see those folks come together around that table and have a shot, quite frankly, at keeping the business private. Because if that doesn't go well, by the way, grandma, grandpa, mom, and dad say it's not worth it. Let's get rid of it. Everybody can be happy, and we'll stay with Christmas being good.
Yeah, totally. If you could sprinkle fairy dust on our industry as maybe consultants, or maybe on the world of entrepreneurship, and you could snap your fingers and change one thing, what would that be?
Yeah, it's a great question. The thing that I think, and it's interesting because we call our practice a sales enablement advisory. And we did it really, really specifically because in our voice of customer work, the term consultant has a very negative connotation. And there's a couple of connotations around it that I think are either real or unreal. One is, I only give you knowledge when you pay me. And when you stop paying me, I stop giving you knowledge, which is I heard over and over again. And that obviously includes that piece of consultants are always trying to sell the next engagement. I have more knowledge to give you that I haven't given you. If you pay me more money, I'll give it to you. That's one. The second one is a beginning and a middle and an end. A lot of engagements that people say about UVP Solutions and the roadmap is I see the beginning, I see the middle, I see the end, I see the 4 management meetings in between, and I see the deliverables that are expected, not wishy-washy and those type of things. And then the third I would say is a desire to leave the knowledge in the business. There's a Greek proverb I love says society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they will never sit in. I think my hope would be those 3 things that we worked on. One, a desire to transfer knowledge that people can use and embed in their business. A scope of work. I love what you said, an inch wide, a mile deep. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're really good at. And at the end, this is what you're going to get. And at the end, we're going to leave, but we're going to build some competency within your business that will help you be successful until you either need us again or never need us again. And I think if we could do those things, just a little switch of mentality around some of those things, I think it would bode well for all of us.
I couldn't agree more. I think clarity of outcome is one of the things that our entire industry of consulting, coaching, mentorship, I think there is, and I'll lump counselors even into that, in the sense that oftentimes if you're a counselor, then oftentimes you've got a vested interest in this person not getting that well that fast, because at the end of the day, you need them coming back for their next counseling session. So that there, and I think you just said it really well. I don't really need to add much to it, but I agree with you. I couldn't agree more. If
Well, and I'll just add the asterisk, right? I'm at a different point in my life, different part of my career where I can plant trees, right? I understand some of the industry, some of the people aren't there, so I don't want to paint everybody with that brush. But I think even if you're in the midst of your career and you're at the point where you need to grow at the best, I think taking that approach will help you be more successful in your current go get it approach than it will now. So I guess the bottom line is take some of the information from the old guys and see if it works with the new guys.
Yeah, I think we're of a similar vintage, and I'm in exactly that same place in my career, and I feel very lucky to be here. And I agree.
Yeah.
I think clients can smell intent a mile away. It's like dogs can smell fear. I think clients can smell intent, and I think if your intent is pure and your intent is good, I think they can smell that. I think if it's not and it's very self-serving and it's very transactional, I think they can smell that too. So I couldn't agree with you more. Now, if people want to get a hold of you, I'll drop a link to your LinkedIn profile and your website in the show notes. But other than that, if people want to reach out and talk to you about all things developing my unique value proposition and what that looks like, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, super easy. So UVP Solutions with an S.com is the website. We got contact us there, or even simpler, JOHN at UVPsolutions.com. We'll get to it. And I love answering the questions and trying to help people be successful. Send them all.
Brilliant, brilliant. Now, as we do come down to the end of our time together, I get a chance to flip the script. I get a chance to turn the microphone over to you, let you ask me one question, any question you like. Mr. John RAVARIS from UVP Solutions, what is your question for me today?
It's an interesting one. I was asked the other day if you could change one rule in the world, what rule would you change?
I think I would make a rule or add a rule that you will, if you want to become a politician anywhere in the world, that you have to have spent a certain amount of time living outside of your home country before you run for public office. I,
Yeah.
I, I think that we suffer from a massive lack of empathy. I could wax on for a really long time about the political class and the elite class of the world, but the reality is, in my own personal life, I know I'm now living in my third country after my, including the one of my birth, but I've visited something like I think I'm at like 32 or 35 countries now that I've been to. And I can without a doubt say that the best education I have gotten throughout my whole life that has made me a better human, that has made me a more empathetic person, the thing that has brought the most value to my life and the thing that I think has allowed me to add more value to other people's lives is to literally walk a mile in their shoes. It sounds good to say walk a mile in someone's shoes, but you got to have boots on the ground in that place. and you got to eat their food. You got to breathe their air. You got to break bread with people. You have to experience what they experience in their daily life. I think to exercise that empathy muscle, and it's like going to the gym, you need to work on it. And I think one of the quickest ways to develop that is to travel. And so I would make that rule.
Yep, I love that. I used to have a CEO that said nobody could create a policy unless the person creating a policy sat in the chair of the person who had to have that policy, use the policy for a day.
Wow.
Same,
I
same
love that.
concept, right? How many policies come down and everybody goes, "You have no idea what we do here, do you?"
Exactly. I
Yeah,
couldn't agree more. It's so true. Listen, John, this has been a fabulous discussion. It's been super enjoyable. Appreciate you sharing all your wisdom and knowledge with me and my audience today. Wish you every ongoing success with UVP Solutions. And I can't wait to speak to you again soon. Thank you so much.
awesome. Thank you, Jason.
If you'd like to get mentored by Jason for free, head over to greenwoodconsulting.net, scroll to the bottom of the page, and click Get Mentored by Jason.